Hello dear viewers, you're watching RTD's English News Edition. Here are our top stories for this evening. The third edition of the citizens' meetings, Djibouti's first citizen commitment, took place this morning at the People's Palace. 4 officers killed in a knife attack at police headquarters in Paris. Thank you for joining us in our newsroom. This was the third edition of a citizens' meeting, which was opened this morning at the People's Palace. This meeting began in a festive and fraternal atmosphere, followed by the national anthem. As usual, this meeting brought together all members of the government, party and officials at all levels, RPP members and supporters, as well as a significant number of citizens from Djibouti's civil society. This day was dedicated to activists to instill an ideal and a state of mind embodied in a useful and responsible commitment in the service of the general interest. With Djibouti as its theme, this ideal has clearly reflected an imperative to invest in a better future. This event was nourished by debates, questions and answers relating to social affairs, activism, fundamental themes on the most prominent topics in our society, reflections on civic engagement, collective interest and the common good, but above all, through a political reflections on the challenges facing the constantly changing world, where the heart of the debate, founded on 4 March 1977 in Dekhil, in the south of the country, the RPP was born from the merger of several political parties whose leaders were able to resolve their differences in order to work together for national unity. In a speech on this occasion, the party's Vice President, Mr. Abdul Qadir Kamil Mohammed, said that these discussions and talks were focused on the concept of peace, progress, and unity. Local citizen meetings are the hallmark of our party's governance, he said, and undoubtedly allows our party to open up to the general public and activists to establish a frank and constructive dialogue with all, he concluded. For his part, the Secretary General of the Popular Relay Party for Progress, Mr. Yes Moussa Douale, praised the organization of these meetings, which is the third version of the party. The Secretary General said that whatever our differences, our personal opinions, our current situation, what must prevail over everything and above all is the national interest, he said. After the speeches, the panelists discussed a theme that focused on peace and progress. Among the panelists were Vice President Abdul Qadir Kamil Mohammed, Secretary General Ilyas Moussa Douale, Deputy Secretary Mahmoud Ali Yusuf, PND President Abdurrahman Mohammed Alali, Siman Yassin Abdullahi elected Dekhil. This theme allowed for a constructive debate. In a fruitful exchange, the panelists concluded that without peace, no progress can be made. Thus, peace and progress are two notions that go in hand in hand. The peace and progress of nation strengthens living together. These reflections on this theme reflect citizen engagement for the collective interest in the common good. It was at the Diplomatic Institute that a conference was held on the commemoration of the 80th anniversary of the Second World War, a conference co-chaired by the head of diplomacy and the Russian ambassador yesterday. This event brought together a diverse audience ranging from the country's intellectuals to the history lovers. This conference was dedicated to the commemoration of the 80th anniversary of the beginning of the Second World War, with the aim of raising humankind awareness of the dangers of the Second World War, and inviting people all over the world to show solidarity and patriotism in order to avoid at all costs a new conflict of this kind. And finally, a series of questions and answers followed, in particular how the duty to remember the Second World War can succeed in avoiding at all costs a new conflict of this kind in the world, at a time when almost all the countries of the world have increased their military power and defended the cohesion of the countries of the world, harmonizing in the development relations between different nationalities and faiths, tolerance and mutual respect, the maintenance of cultural diversity, and open and constructive dialogue among civilians, in the condition for victory over the forces of hatred, of separatism and extremism. The Russian ambassador, Mr. Golovanov, gave a speech on this occasion in which he explains the attack on some European countries, which led to serious losses, according to him. This conference consisted of an exhibition recounting the horrors of war and accompanied by a short documentary on the invasion of Poland, the first victim of the Second World War, and the flood of fire that razed the entire country. In his speech, the Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, Mahmoud Ali Yusuf, noted that Russia paid a high price to liberate part of its territory. As part of his regional tour, Health Minister Mohamed Warsamadiriye, along with the Secretary of State for Decentralization Hamadou Mohamed Aramis, went to the Dikhil region. Accompanied by a large delegation of parliamentarians of the region, two ministers were welcomed to the premises by the President of the Regional Council, Abdurrahman Yunus Arre, and the Prefect of the region, Mr. Adan Musadrar, who was also congratulated by the Minister of Health on his recent appointment to this position. Throughout the visit, the ministerial delegation was able to follow the explanations of the Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Muhammad Ali Rufa, that make up the medical center of Dikhil, such as operating block, pharmacy, laboratory, maternity, and emergency services. The Minister of Health, Mr. Mohamed Warsamadiriye, therefore asked about the exhaustive inventory of the medical center, which covers the most important region of the country in terms of its surface area and population. On the sidelines of this tour, the Minister of Health and his colleague of decentralization, Mr. Hamadou Mohamed Aramis, met with the elders of the region to discuss the health issues that concern them, but also, above all, to listen to their grievances. Also noteworthy was the presence of the prefect of the region, the president of the regional council, and parliamentarians who attended this consultation between members of the government and representatives of the Dikhil population. The elders took turns speaking to the government members about their views and grievances on various topics related to health promotion. Attentive to all the requests made, to the two ministers briefed their interlocutors on the main lines as well as on the short-term prospects of health policy in their region. And following their tour in the region, the Minister of Health and his colleague at the decentralization, Hamadou Mohamed Aramis, went to As'ela to visit the health post in this locality, accompanied by the prefect of the region, the president of the regional council, and the parliamentarians of the region. The ministerial delegation made a guided tour of this health post in the presence of the chief medical officer, Dr. Muhammad Ali. It should be recalled that this visit is part of the agenda of the contact visits to the regions that the Minister of Health initiated at the end of his appointment. Thus, the Minister of Health was able to see for himself the condition of the medical center in order to measure the quality of the services and the minimum package of activities provided within this health structure. Other news of this evening, the Embassy of the United States of America in Djibouti hosted a reception on Wednesday evening for the high-level delegation of the United States House of Representatives led by the Chargé d'Affaires of the United States Embassy in Djibouti, Alexander Hamilton. It was a colorful evening and a unique opportunity to welcome delegates who represent African interests and concerns to the U.S. Congress. The reception was attended by enthusiastic guests as well as members of various organizations and agencies in Djibouti, embassy staff, and representatives of the private sector. delegation composed of the Honorable Ilhan Umar, Karen Baz, and Shayla Jackson Lee received a warm welcome. The highlight of this reception was a fruitful debate between parliamentarians and guests.
So one of the things, it took us a long time to get here, but we've been wanting to come to Djibouti for a very long time because we were very interested in what the U.S. military is doing in Djibouti. And one of the things that was very exciting for us to come to the embassy and also to tour the base was to see so many of the local people who live in the area who work here at the embassy and also at the base.
I am a member who rarely says it, but I'm in my 24th year of the United States Congress. I have been to at least 85% of the continent. And I could not rest without getting to Djibouti.
And after the embassy, the delegation headed to Camp Iski, where the president of the businesswoman in Djibouti, Ms. Hibo Basha Hassan, organized a reception for the American MP of Somali origin, Mrs. Ilhan Umar. This colorful reception brought together all the businesswomen of Djibouti. The purpose of this lively evening was to create a space for discussion among businesswomen who have succeeded in their respective fields with the American MP. In other words, Djibouti women have succeeded in the private sector and continue to pave the way for young girls. They shared an exchange and rich experience. In her speech, American MP Ilhan Umar said she was honored by the invitation. She highlighted that each person's past, wherever his or her background is, they must never hinder our passion, our ambition to move forward and succeed in our lives. The national football team left the premises of the National Technical Center yesterday afternoon on the edge of the modern transport bus of the National Gendarmerie to go to the Sheikh Musa camp of the PK-23, where they will spend a week for an internship in the infrastructure of the International School of Judicial Police of the National Gendarmerie. This is an anticipation of a match against Gambia scheduled for October 9 as part of the African Cup qualifiers. This blood camp comes a week before the match against Gambia, a match that is part of the CAN qualifiers. This is the second time that the national team will go green in these places where they enjoy all the necessary means and ideal comforts thanks to the Colonel Zakaria Hassan, Chief of Staff of the National Gendarmerie, who wanted to make his contribution to the physical and moral development of the players. The Chief of Staff of the National Gendarmerie, Colonel Zakaria Hassan, has promised that his institution will provide permanent support to the national team and the efforts of the FTD. During this reception, the Director of the International School of Judicial Policy, Major Hussein Mohammed Kayat, and the Secretary General of the FDF, Mr. Yusuf Hassan Ahmed Mohamoud, congratulated the Djibouti national team after having taken the group phase ticket for the qualification of the Qatar 2022 World Cup. In world news, 4 police officers killed with a knife in Paris Police Prefecture. A man with a knife attacked several officials inside the Paris Police Prefectures yesterday and managed to kill 3 police officers and a female administrative agent. Informed the Paris public prosecutor Remy Hayes. A 5th victim, a police officer, was transported in an absolute emergency to the Paris Army Training Hospital in Kilmar. The attacker, who was an administrative employee, was shot in the head by another member of the security forces present in the courtyard of the prefecture itself. He died instantly. The armed man, originally from Martinique, aged 45, has been working in the IT department of the Intelligence Directorate for some 15 years. His first 3 victims were killed on the premises of this service. The 4 on staircase. The reasons for the attack have not yet been established, but the possibility of a personal conflict could arise, investigators said. In any case, according to judicial sources, the anti-terrorist prosecutor's office has not yet been notified. Well, that's all for this news. Thank you for joining us on the radio television of Djibouti, and have a good night.